everyone, it's Cathy Zielske here. Welcome to another installment of Super Simple with me, CZ. Today's card project features an old classic standby technique, the always appropriate and super simple watermark background. This is something that I don't do as often as I used to, and I'm excited to share these simple card projects with you today. So let's take a look at the products I'm using. I'm going to be using my So Far So Good stamps that I designed for Simon Says Stamp just to create a nice pair of encouraging cards celebrating good news. And there are also coordinating dies that I'll be using to cut out my little stamped and ink blended sentiments. Got 3 Distress Oxides here, really liking this combination right now, including Speckled Egg. That's new to me, just got my hands on that. And I'm going to be using a little embossing powder and, of course, embossing ink for my background. And I'm going to use this cling stamp to create my background. It has this bold, chunky flower pattern. And I'm also going to be using some blender brushes to add on my color. And for cardstock, I'm using some lemon chiffon from Simon Says Stamp and some Neenah Solar White Classic Crest. Let's start making the projects. I'm going to use my original size Misty, take the pad out, and grab my cling stamp, take the little backer off, and place it inside the Misty. This is how I like to use cling stamps. I like to put them inside the Misty and add my paper to the door. So I've got my little piece of cardstock here, and I'm going to be trimming this down after the fact, but it's just a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece. And I'm going to tape this down, little low tack tape on the back, and then I'm going to pick this up with the Misty door. This is just how I like to do the whole background step. I like to press my paper into the stamp and not the reverse. So, Versamark. My pad was really dry, so I had to grab my Simon embossing ink. But the whole point of this video is embossing ink backgrounds. I used to do this in the olden days of scrapbooking, right? I would just use the Versamark to create a watermark look. But then I became a card maker and realized that this is actually how you add embossing powder, and that my mind was blown. So I thought, I'm going to go back to the old school method of only stamping with the embossing ink to create that watermark look. Because sometimes you want to get that tone-on-tone look, and you might not have the right ink color, like I didn't have a lemon chiffon ink. So by using this embossing ink, it gave me that tone-on-tone look. And I love that effect. It just looks so cool. And it will basically dry and look just like this. And I am going to set this aside because the embossing ink does take a little time to dry, but that's what I'm looking for. Just this tone-on-tone pattern for my card panel. All right, moving on. Next, I'm going to take a few of the stamps and stamp these onto some Neenah Solar White Classic Crest cardstock. This is the 110-pound weight. I just thought it would be nice to stamp 2 at a time, so I had a few options to make my card projects. Just make sure my cardstock is positioned back in the Misty. Take my embossing magic, swipe that over just to remove any static or oil from the cardstock so that when I stamp my embossing ink, my powder only sticks to where the impressions appear. I'm going to press that down. I like to use a Swiffer cloth just because it lets my hands kind of glide over the Misty door. And now I'll sprinkle on the powder. This is just white powder from Simon Says Stamp. Sprinkle a little more there just to get a nice good coating and tap off the excess. Now we're ready to heat emboss. Get my heat tool nice and hot and quickly melt that powder until it is all smooth and shiny. You see how it catches the light? We're ready for adding color. I'm cutting these apart just because I like to kind of do just one at a time, and I thought I would start with this little rectangular sentiment. Just going to pick up the ink and I'll start blending it onto the piece. And of course, the white embossed area will resist the ink, and then we will get the reveal of the stamped embossed image. I just really liked these 3 colors together. Green and yellow sit next to each other on the color wheel, but I sort of interrupted this flow by putting the blue below the yellow. And that's okay. I started off a little bit with the blue because I wanted it to be a little lighter. I know that some of these colors don't have quite the same value, but I did think it was a cool look how they all came together in the end. I'm going to wipe off any excess that has pooled on top of the embossed area with a paper towel. And that is ready for die cutting. I also did this off camera, same blend, and now I've got 2 ready to be cut out. I've got the coordinating dies on the pieces, and I'll run them through my Platinum 6 die cut machine and pop them out. Perfectly cut and ready for cards. I'm going to create my card base for the first card, and this will be a US A2 card that is 4 1/4 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall. I like to tape my card bases closed just so they stay flat while I am adhering all of my elements. I went ahead and trimmed my panel down a little bit off camera to be a smaller size, and I'm going to put a piece of fun foam on the back to add dimension. I like to lay down some really sticky tape runner like this tape from Scrapbook Adhesives. It's a really quick way to get that fun foam adhered to a card panel. But then I'll use liquid adhesive on the back of the fun foam. The reason I like to do this is I like to be able to wiggle it a little. So if I don't get it in the right place perfectly the first time, I can kind of wiggle it around, and the liquid glue just gives me a little bit of playtime. And I love that margin of space framing the panel. I'm going to put some foam squares on the back of the blended piece, and I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue to each of those foam squares. And again, the reason I do that is just so that I can wiggle it a little so it doesn't stick exactly where you put it. I can kind of just wait to press it down until I make sure that it's lined up. I think with simple cards with not a lot going on, you know, having things lined up, that looks good. And that's it. I'm not adding anything else to this card. I really like how simple it is, and I love that effect. The second card with the good news, I created this small square, and I just used some other dies to create that square with a circle. I used a little nesting square and a circle from a waffle flower die set to give the little good news a home, and then I just stamped and embossed the open this card. But I really love the look of that tone on tone, stamping with your embossing ink. Don't emboss. Just let it dry for a beautiful, subtle pattern for your background. Thanks so much for watching today, and we would love to have you become a subscriber to the Simon Says Stamp YouTube channel, and I'll see you back here with another simple card project soon.